Hey guys, tonight we slip through the starlit haze of ancient Sumer, where the Tigris and Euphrates cradle a world of mud brick cities and whispered secrets. Picture yourself trudging barefoot on a dusty path, the air thick with the scent of baked clay and distant date palms. Shadows flicker from reed torches as you pass merchants' stalls, their goods glinting under moonlight, until a thief's quick hand snatches a silver ring, and the crowd's murmurs turn sharp. In Sumer, justice for thieves isn't just a slap on the wrist, it's a parade of peculiar punishments. Some so odd you'll wonder how anyone survived the embarrassment. Spoiler, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I'm curious where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing in the heart of Uruk, one of Sumer's grandest cities. Around 3000 BCE, the streets pulse with life. Potters hawk their wares, scribes scratch cuneiform into clay, and priests chant to gods you've never heard of, like Inanna or Enlil. But your eyes lock on a figure darting through the crowd, cloak flapping, clutching a stolen loaf of barley bread. Theft here isn't just a crime, it's a disruption of the cosmic order, a middle finger to the gods who supposedly keep Sumer humming. The thief's not just running from the market guard, he's dodging a system of punishments that range from mildly humiliating to downright bizarre. Let's set the scene properly. Sumer's no backwater, it's the cradle of civilization, where writing, wheels, and cities were born. Historians call it the first urban society, with laws etched in stone, well, clay, long before Hammurabi's famous code. But here's the quirky bit. Sumerians believed thieves didn't just steal goods, they stole divine favor, upsetting the balance of heaven and earth. That's why punishments weren't just about payback. They were about restoring order, often in ways that sound like they were cooked up after too much date wine. Historians still argue whether these penalties were meant to deter or just entertain the masses, but one thing's clear: they were unforgettable. You follow the thief as he weaves past a ziggurat, its stepped silhouette looming like a stairway to the gods, the crowd's shouting now, pointing fingers, and you can't help but feel a twinge of pity. Sumerian justice doesn't mess around. A thief caught red-handed might face anything from a public shaming to a dip in the river to prove their innocence. And no, that's not a refreshing swim. It's a test where sinking means you're guilty. Charming, right? You're starting to notice the city's rhythm. The clink of bronze tools, the chatter of Akkadian tongues, and the ever-present threat of someone yelling, "Stop that thief!" It's a place where every misstep could land you in a punishment so weird it'd make your modern sensibilities cringe. As you trail the thief, you pass a scribe sitting cross-legged, stylus in hand, recording the day's trades on a clay tablet. He glances up, unimpressed, like he's seen this chase 100 times. Sumerians loved their records. Debts, deals, even crimes were meticulously noted. If this thief's caught, his name might end up on one of those tablets, a permanent mark of shame. Joke's on him, though. Those tablets are so durable, archaeologists are still digging them up. Imagine your worst mistake preserved for 5,000 years. Makes you glad for shredders, doesn't it? The thief ducks into an alley, but the crowd's closing in. You're swept along, heart pounding, wondering what's next. Will he face a fine, a beating, or something weirder, like being paraded around with a basket of stolen goods on his head? Sumer's punishments were as creative as their irrigation systems, and you're about to see one up close. The air's getting warmer, the stars brighter, and the city's pulse feels alive under your feet. You're not just in Sumer, you're part of its strange, dusty drama, where even a loaf of bread can lead to a cosmic reckoning. You're still in Ur's bustling marketplace, the air thick with the scent of sesame oil and sun-baked clay. The thief you've been trailing, that bread-snatching shadow, trips over a stray goat, and the crowd pounces. Shouts of "thief" echo as rough hands drag him toward the market's center, where a wooden platform waits like a stage for Sumer's peculiar brand of justice. You push closer, heart thumping, caught in the throng of onlookers, merchants, weavers, even a kid munching on a fig, all eager to see what fate awaits. This isn't just a trial, it's theater, and you've got front row seats to a punishment that'll make your modern stomach churn. The market's alive with color. Stalls piled with barley, dates, and shimmering fish from the Euphrates. But all eyes are on the thief, now kneeling, his cloak torn, sweat beading on his brow. Sumerians didn't just lock up criminals, they crafted penalties to fit the crime, often with a flair that feels half genius, half unhinged. A mainstream fact anchors this scene. The Sumerians, around 2500 BCE, had one of the earliest legal systems, with rules for theft scratched into clay tablets, like the Code of Ur-Nammu. Stealing wasn't just a personal offense, it was a crack in the social order, and fixing it required creativity. Here's the quirky bit. Sometimes a thief might be forced to carry their stolen goods around town in a basket, balanced on their head, while people jeered. Imagine juggling a stack of pilfered onions while your neighbors chant, "Nice try, sticky fingers." It's less about pain and more about ego demolition. Sumerians knew how to hit where it hurt. Historians still argue whether these public displays were meant to reform the thief or just give the crowd a good laugh, but you can feel the humiliation radiating off this guy as he awaits his fate. You notice a market overseer, a burly man with a bronze-tipped staff, stepping forward. He's not a judge in the modern sense, but he's got authority, backed by the city's elders, and maybe a priest or two lurking nearby. The thief's muttering apologies, claiming he was starving, but the overseer's unimpressed. Hunger's no excuse when you've swiped from a merchant who paid taxes to the temple. You catch a whiff of incense from a nearby shrine, a reminder that the gods are watching, always watching. In Sumer, justice isn't just human, it's divine, and this thief's about to learn that the hard way. The overseer barks an order, and the crowd hushes. You lean in, expecting a fine or maybe a whipping, but instead, the punishment's weirder. The thief's told to return the bread, fair enough, but also to sweep the entire marketplace at dawn for a week. Under the merchant's watchful eyes, you stifle a chuckle. Imagine the guy who stole your loaf now sweeping your stall while you sip barley beer. It's not exactly high-stakes drama, but it's effective. Everyone in Ur will know his face by week's end, and good luck stealing again when you're the town's unofficial janitor. You can't help but wonder how this compares to modern justice. A shoplifter today might get a fine or community service, but there's no crowd chanting their shame. Sumerians leaned hard into social pressure, making sure a thief's mistake followed them like a bad smell. Joke's on us, though. Our digital footprints are probably worse. Post one dumb tweet, and it's clay tablet level permanent. You glance at the thief, who's now being handed a reed broom, and you almost feel sorry for him. Almost. The sun's dipping low, casting long shadows across the market. You notice the kid with the fig from earlier. He's tossing the pit at the thief, giggling. Kids, right? Always adding insult to injury. The crowd's starting to disperse, satisfied with the spectacle. But you linger, watching the thief slump under the weight of his broom and his bad choices. Sumer's justice system isn't just about punishment. It's about reminding everyone, from merchants to fig-munching kids, that order matters. You turn away, the marketplace hum fading, knowing this thief's story is just one of many, each with its own strange twist waiting to unfold. You're still in the marketplace now quiet as dusk settles, but the thief's fate lingers in your mind like dust on your sandals. You wander toward a scribe's stall, where a bearded man hunches over a clay tablet, stylus scratching lines that glint wet under torchlight. These tablets aren't just for trade records, they're the backbone of Sumerian law, and you're about to see how they dictate a thief's peculiar punishment. The air's cooler now, carrying the faint tang of river mud, and you feel the weight of this ancient city's order pressing down, as unyielding as the clay beneath the scribe's hands. Sumerians were obsessive about writing things down, a mainstream fact that sets them apart as the first civilization to codify laws. Around 2100 BCE, King Ur-Nammu's code laid out penalties for crimes, including theft, on tablets that could survive a sandstorm. Stealing a merchant's silver might cost you a fine, say, 5 shekels, or something weirder, like a public apology at the city gate. But here's the quirky tidbit. Some tablets hint at thieves being forced to wear a wooden collar, like a protodunce cap, inscribed with their crime. Imagine strolling through with, "I stole barley" carved on your neckwear. Talk about a fashion faux pas. You watch the scribe, his fingers steady, etching a record of today's market theft. He's not just noting the crime, he's weaving it into Sumer's legal tapestry, where every misstep is judged by laws the gods supposedly approved. Historians still argue whether these tablets were enforced strictly or more like guidelines, but you can't shake the feeling that this thief's broom-sweeping gig from the market was pulled straight from one of these clay relics. The scribe glances up, eyes sharp, as if he knows you're snooping on Sumer's justice system. You step closer, peering at the tablet's wedge-shaped marks. They're not just words, they're power, binding the thief to his penalty as surely as ropes. The law might demand he repay double the stolen bread's value. But if he's broke, most thieves were. That's where things get creative. Maybe he'll haul water for the merchant's household, or weirder still, chant a hymn to Nana, the moon god, every night for a month. You chuckle softly, imagine explaining that on your resume. Skilled in theft and lunar karaoke, Sumerians loved their divine flair, didn't they? The scribe's stall is near a small shrine, where a clay figurine of a god, probably Enki, patron of wisdom, stares blankly at you. It's a reminder that justice here isn't just about balancing scales, it's about pleasing the divine. If the thief's punishment feels odd, it's because it's not just for the merchant's sake, it's for the gods, who apparently have strong opinions about stolen bread. You catch a whiff of barley stew from a nearby house, and your stomach rumbles, pulling you back to earth. Bet that thief wishes he just bought dinner instead of swiping it. You turn away from the scribe, but his tablet stays with you. Those laws, etched in clay, feel alive, guiding Ur's every heartbeat. You recall the market's jeering crowd, the thief's slumped shoulders, and now you see the bigger picture. Sumer's justice isn't random. It's a machine, grinding out punishments that stick in the mind like cuneiform in clay. Joke's on the thief, though. Those tablets will outlast his shame, dug up millennia later by archaeologists with too much time on their hands. You smirk, imagining some future scholar puzzling over broom duty as a penalty. As you walk, the city's hum softens. Crickets chirp, a distant dog barks. You pass a guard leaning on his spear, eyeing you like you might be next to swipe a loaf. Sumer's laws don't sleep, and neither does its justice. The thief's probably out there now plotting how to survive his week of sweeping. But you're already wondering what other strange penalties these tablets hold. The night's young, and Ur's shadows are full of stories, each one etched in clay, waiting to pull you deeper into Sumer's dusty drama. You're trudging along the banks of the Euphrates now, the river's surface glinting like polished bronze under a fading sun. The air's damp, heavy with the scent of reeds and silt, and your sandals squelch in the mud as you follow a small crowd toward a peculiar scene. The thief from the marketplace, still clutching that fateful loaf's shame, stands trembling at the water's edge. He's not here for a bath. This is the river ordeal, Sumer's chilling test of guilt or innocence, and you're about to see justice get wet and weird. The crowd's buzzing, half curious, half mocking, and you can't look away. Sumerians loved their rivers, not just for irrigation, but for divine judgment, a mainstream fact tied to their belief that water was sacred. Around 2000 BCE, legal texts mention ordeals where suspects, like our thief, were tossed into the Euphrates to let the river god decide their fate. Sink, and you're guilty float, and you're innocent. Sounds simple, right? Except nobody's handing out life jackets. Here's the quirky bit. Some tablets suggest priests would smear the accused with clay before the plunge, supposedly to mark them for the gods. Imagine the thief, slathered in mud, looking like a soggy pottery project. You stifle a grin. Divine justice or divine prank? You edge closer, the river's current tugging at your senses. The thief's eyes are wide, darting between the water and a priest in a fringed robe, who's muttering prayers to ID, the river deity. The crowd's whispering bets. Will he float or flop? Historians still argue whether these ordeals were common or reserved for tricky cases. But right now, it feels like the whole city's holding its breath. The priest raises a hand, and the thief's pushed forward, stumbling into the shallows. You wince as cold water splashes his knees, then his waist. This isn't a game, it's a gamble with the gods. The thief's arms flail as he's shoved deeper, the current swirling around him. You're close enough to see his panic, his gasps for air, and you wonder if he's regretting that bread more than ever. The crowd's shouting now. Some cheer, some jeer, and one guy's selling roasted chickpeas like it's a festival. You roll your eyes. Sumerians could turn anything into a spectator sport. But there's a strange logic here. If the river spares him, he's cleansed, free to go. If not, well, the gods have spoken, and nobody argues with a deity who controls the floods. You recall those clay tablets from the scribe's stall, their wedge-shaped rules etched like fate. The river ordeal's mentioned in some, but it's vague. Did everyone get dunked, or just repeat offenders? You imagine the thief wishing he'd stuck to sweeping the market instead of facing this soggy trial. Joke's on him, though even if he floats, he's still the guy who got yeeted into the Euphrates over a loaf. Good luck living that down at the local tavern. The priest's prayers grow louder, and you catch a whiff of incense from a nearby brazier, its smoke curling over the water. The thief's thrashing less now, bobbing awkwardly, and wait, he's floating. The crowd gasps, then cheers, though a few grumble, probably hoping for a dunking. The priest nods, declaring the god's verdict innocent, or at least not guilty enough to drown. The thief crawls ashore, shivering, clay-streaked, and very much alive. You almost clap, then catch yourself. This isn't your show, but Sumer's drama's got you hooked. As the crowd thins, you linger by the river, its ripples catching starlight. The thief's being hustled off, probably to dry out and face some lesser penalty, like more broom duty. You smirk, thinking of that wooden collar from the tablets. Maybe he'll wear one yet. The river's still flowing eternal, carrying Sumer's secrets downstream. You feel its pull, its cold truth, and you know this isn't the last strange punishment you'll see. The night's alive with whispers of justice, and Ur's shadows beckon you deeper into their dusty divine dance. You've left the riverbank behind, its chilly ordeal still rippling in your thoughts, and now you're weaving through Ur's narrow streets toward a looming temple. The air's thick with the scent of myrrh and baked earth, and torchlight flickers on mud-brick walls as you approach a sacred precinct, its gateway flanked by snarling lion statues. Inside, the thief from the market, still damp from his river dip, kneels before a massive clay statue of Nana, the moon god. You're here to witness a trial where the gods themselves seem to sit in judgment, their unblinking eyes weighing the thief's fate. The crowd's hushed, and you feel a prickle of awe, or maybe it's just the temple's drafty chill. Sumerians believed their gods were hands-on, a mainstream fact reflected in their justice system. Temples weren't just for worship by 2000 BCE. They doubled as courthouses where priests interpreted divine will for crimes like theft. The quirky tidbit: some texts suggest statues like Nana's were thought to speak, guiding verdicts through omens or priestly whispers. Picture the thief sweating under that clay gaze, wondering if Nana's about to snitch to the heavens. You stifle a chuckle. Talk about a performance review from the afterlife. Historians still argue whether these divine trials were genuine or just priestly theatrics to keep the masses in line, but the tension here is real. You slip into the temple's courtyard, sandals scuffing on polished stone. The thief's on his knees, head bowed, while a priest in a tasseled robe waves a censer, its smoke curling like ghostly fingers. The statue towers above, its lapis lazuli eyes catching firelight, and you can't help but feel it staring right through you. The thief's muttering pleas, probably regretting that loaf more than ever, but the priest's face is stone cold. This isn't the marketplace's rowdy justice, it's solemn, heavy, like the gods are eavesdropping on every word. The priest lifts a clay tablet, reading a law, maybe one from Ur-Nammu's code, demanding restitution or worse for theft. You recall the river ordeal, how the thief floated, but that wasn't enough. Now, the temple's adding its own twist. The priest declares the punishment. The thief must offer a basket of dates to Nana's altar and walk backward out of the temple, chanting apologies to the god. You blink. Backward walking? That's new. It's not just humiliating. It's a logistical nightmare on these uneven floors. You imagine the thief tripping, dates spilling, and the priests sighing like overworked babysitters. Sumerians, man, they turned justice into performance art. You glance at the crowd, a mix of devotees and nosy locals, whispering about the verdict. One woman, clutching a clay amulet, mutters that Nana's mercy saved the thief from worse, like being cursed to wander the underworld. You smirk. Sumerian gods didn't mess around. If you stole from a temple, you might end up donating your labor to it, hauling bricks for a month. Jokes on modern thieves. Imagine shoplifting and getting sentenced to build a church. The thief starting his backward shuffle now, basket wobbling, and you wince as he nearly topples. Graceful, this guy is not. The temple's air feels heavier, the incense thicker, and you catch a faint chant from deeper within, where priests are probably divining omens in sheep livers. Gross but standard. You remember those clay tablets, their rules binding like invisible chains, and now you see the gods' role in it all. This trial's not just about the thief, it's about reminding everyone that Nana's watching, ready to tip the scales. You wonder if the thief believes the statue's alive, or if he's just playing along to avoid a worse fate. Either way, he's almost at the gate, still chanting, still backward, and still alive, for now. You step outside, the night air cool against your skin. The thief's punishment feels like a callback to the market's broom duty, another layer in Sumer's weird justice cake. The temple looms behind you, its lion statues glinting, and you feel Ur's pulse, part divine, part dusty, all drama. The thief's free, sort of, but the god's eyes linger, and you know more strange punishments await in this city's shadows. You turn, the stars bright, ready to follow the next thread of Sumer's peculiar tale. You're back in Ur's dusty streets, the temple's incense still clinging to your cloak as you weave through the evening crowd. The thief, fresh from his backward walking date basket fiasco, is now being led to the city's main square, where a gaggle of onlookers waits like vultures, circling a bad decision. Torchlight dances on mud-brick walls, and the air hums with chatter and the faint bleat of goats. This isn't another trial. It's public shaming, Sumer's favorite way to make a thief's ego bleed, and you're about to see humiliation turned into an art form. The thief's face is already redder than a sunburned scribe, and you can't help but lean in, caught in the city's relentless drama. Public punishment was a cornerstone of Sumerian justice, a mainstream fact rooted in their tight-knit urban life. By 2000 BCE, cities like Ur used shame to enforce order, ensuring everyone knew who broke the rules. Stealing wasn't just a crime, it was a betrayal of the community, and the crowd got to play judge and jury. Here's the quirky bit. Some thieves were forced to wear a shame tablet, a clay slab hung around their neck, inscribed with their crime. Picture the thief trudging through Ur with a sign reading, "I nabbed a fish, you snort." Imagine the Instagram captions if Sumerians had smartphones. Historians still argue whether these displays reformed criminals or just fed the public's love for gossip. But the square's energy screams entertainment. You push through the crowd, the scent of barley beer and sweat hitting you like a warm wave. The thief's standing on a low platform, hands bound with reed cords, while a city official, a guy with a beard like a bird's nest, reads his crime aloud. That stolen loaf, the one that started this mess, is now a legend in Ur. The punishment, he's to sit here for 3 days, smeared with honey to attract ants while passers-by toss insults. You wince, ants are bad enough, but the jeering, brutal. It's like Sumer invented cancel culture, minus the Wi-Fi. The crowd's loving it. A potter hurls a playful taunt, something about sticky fingers and soggy bread, and the thief flinches. You spot that fig-munching kid from the market, now lobbing a pebble with pinpoint aim. Kids, right, always the worst critics. You recall the river ordeal, how the thief floated, and the temple's backward chant. Sumer's piling on the humiliation like it's a competition. The honey's already drawing a few adventurous ants, and you're torn between pity and morbid fascination. Joke's on you, though. Step out of line in Ur, and you'd be the one scratching ant bites in public. The official steps back, letting the crowd take over. A woman selling reeds shouts that the thief's lucky. He could have lost a hand in other cities. She's not wrong. Some Mesopotamian laws were harsher, but Sumer leaned into social sting over physical pain. You notice a scribe nearby, scratching notes on a clay tablet, probably recording this for posterity. Those tablets again, outlasting everyone's dignity. You imagine archaeologists digging up honey ant guy in 5,000 years and chuckling, the thief's trying to look defiant, but his slumped shoulders scream defeat. You almost want to toss him a rag to wipe the honey off. But nah, this is Sumer's show. You catch a whiff of roasting fish from a nearby stall, and your stomach growls, reminding you of the thief's original sin. Hunger. It's easy to judge, but not exactly handing out free lunches. The crowd's starting to thin, bored now that the initial roast is over. But the thief's stuck here, ants and all, for days. You wonder how he'll face his neighbors after this, or if he'll even stay in The square's still lively, with merchants haggling and dogs sniffing for scraps, but the mood's shifting, night's creeping in, and the stars are peeking out, sharp against the sky. You turn away, the thief's shame fading into the city's hum. Sumer's justice feels like a machine, grinding out lessons through embarrassment rather than blood. You think back to the temple's looming statues, the river's cold verdict, and now this sticky spectacle, each punishment weirder than the last. Shadows stretch long, and you know more bizarre fates await, tucked in the city's dusty corners. You step forward, the night wrapping around you, ready to chase the next thread of this peculiar tale. You're still in the square's honey ant spectacle fading behind you as you slip into a quieter alley, the air sharp with the scent of cooling clay and distant river reeds. The thief, now a sticky, ant-bitten legend, lingers in your thoughts, but Sumer's justice has more tricks up its dusty sleeve. You hear a commotion ahead, shouts, a scuffle, and find yourself at a small courtyard where another thief, a wiry man with nervous eyes, is being judged. This time, it's all about his hands, those nimble tools of crime, and you're about to see Sumerians get creative with their punishment. The torchlight flickers, casting shadows that dance like judgmental spirits, and you lean closer, drawn into relentless theater. Sumerian law often targeted the body for punishment, a mainstream fact grounded in their practical approach to justice. By 2000 BCE, legal texts like those from Namu's era show penalties for theft could include physical marks or restraints, especially for repeat offenders. Hands, the instruments of stealing, were prime targets. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some thieves had their hands bound with reeds for weeks, forced to carry a clay crime token in their palms wherever they went. Imagine dropping your token at the tavern and everyone knowing you swiped a goat. You smirk. Sumerians were the inventors of talk to the hand. Historians still argue whether these punishments aimed to disable or just humiliate, but the courtyard's vibe screams both. You squeeze into the crowd, the air thick with dust and whispered bets. The thief's kneeling, hands outstretched, while a city elder, a woman with a voice like gravel, reads his crime. He stole a bronze dagger from a blacksmith. The elder's holding a bundle of reeds, and you realize what's coming. She orders his hands tied, not just for a day, but for a full month, with a clay token etched with thief to clutch at all times. You wince try eating barley stew with bound hands. The thief's face falls, and you can't tell if he's more upset about the binding or the fact that everyone's staring like he's a sideshow. The elder steps forward, wrapping the reeds herself, her movements precise, almost ritualistic. You catch a whiff of sesame oil from a nearby stall, a reminder of bustling normalcy, but here, normal's on hold. The crowd's murmuring, some nod approval, others snicker. A kid, probably related to that fig tosser from the market, mimics the thief's bound hands, giggling. You roll your eyes. Sumerian kids are savage. You think back to the honey ant guy, his public shame, and see the pattern. Sumer's justice loves making examples, whether it's ants or awkward hand ties. Joke's on us, though. Modern mugshots aren't much kinder, just faster to spread. The thief's hands are fully bound now, the clay token gleaming in his grip. He's told to parade through Ur's main streets daily, showing off his punishment. You imagine him dodging jeers, trying not to drop that token, which would probably earn him extra days of this nonsense. The elder's speech winds down, invoking Enlil, the air god, to watch this thief's repentance. You glance up, half expecting a divine PowerPoint presentation, but it's just stars, winking like they're in on the joke. Sumerians loved their gods, but you wonder if Enlil's too busy to care about a dagger thief. You notice a scribe in the corner, scratching the verdict onto a clay tablet. Those eternal records again. You recall the marketplace, the river ordeal, the temple's backward walk, each punishment a new layer of weird. This hand-binding feels personal, like Sumer's saying, "Use those fingers for crime, we'll make 'em useless." The thief's led away, stumbling, his bound hands already a burden. You almost pity him, but then you smell fresh-baked bread from a nearby house, and your stomach growls, reminding you why these thieves keep risking it all. Hunger's a harsh master even in Ur. The crowd disperses, the courtyard emptying under the night sky. You linger, watching shadows play on the walls, feeling Sumer's pulse, orderly, divine, and just a bit unhinged. The thief's out there now, clutching his token, learning to live with tied hands and nosy neighbors. You wonder what he'll steal next, or if this'll finally break him. Ur's justice rolls on, relentless, and you know more strange fates wait in its dusty corners. You step into the alley, the stars bright, ready to chase the next thread of this peculiar, moonlit tale. You've left the courtyards, reed-bound drama behind, your sandals now crunching on a path leading out of Ur's crowded heart. The city's hum fades, replaced by the chirp of crickets and the faint rustle of reeds swaying in the night breeze. You're headed toward the marshlands, a soggy wilderness beyond the city walls, where another thief, this one a gaunt woman with defiant eyes, faces a punishment that's less about crowds and more about exile. The air grows damp, heavy with the scent of mud and stagnant water, and you feel the weight of Sumer's justice shift from public spectacle to lonely banishment. Mosquitoes buzz, and you swat one away, already dreading what's next. Exile was a real threat in Sumerian law, a mainstream fact tied to their need to protect urban order. By 2000 BCE, texts show thieves could be banished from cities like Ur, especially if they couldn't pay fines or kept stealing. The marshes, vast, reed-choked wetlands, fed by the Tigris and Euphrates, were a common destination. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some exiles were tasked with cutting reeds for the city's builders, a grueling job that left them knee-deep in muck and mosquito bites. Imagine being sentenced to swamp labor for swiping a clay pot. You grimace. Sumerians had a knack for making punishment feel like a bad camping trip. Historians still argue whether exile was about reform or just getting rid of troublemakers. But out here, it feels like abandonment. You reach the marsh's edge, where a small crowd, mostly guards and a grumpy priest, watches the thief. She stole a merchant's wool, a bold move, and now she's being handed a sickle and a clay tablet, marking her as an exile for a month. The priest mutters a prayer to Enki, god of water, probably to keep her alive in this soggy purgatory. You squint through the moonlight, seeing endless reeds and dark water stretching into the distance. The thief's expression is hard, but her hands tremble as she grips the sickle. You recall the honey ant guy, the backward-walking temple stunt. This is different, quieter, but no less brutal. The guards shove her forward, and she wades into the marsh, water sloshing around her calves. You shiver, imagining the cold, the leeches, the mosquitoes that make your single bite seem like a love tap. The crowd's already turning back to their torches bobbing like fireflies, but you linger, watching her silhouette fade among the reeds. She's got to cut enough to fill a quota, deliver it to the city gate, and survive on whatever fish or roots she can scrounge. You chuckle darkly. Good luck with that, lady. Sumer's justice doesn't just shame, it isolates, leaving you to wrestle with nature and your own bad choices. You swat another mosquito, cursing under your breath. The marsh feels alive. Its croaks and splashes a stark contrast to Ur's orderly bustle. You think of those clay tablets, their laws etched like fate, and how they've led to this. A woman alone, hacking reeds under starlight. Joke's on her, though. Those reeds will build Ur's temples, her punishment literally propping up the city she wronged. You wonder if she'll make it back, or if the marsh will swallow her story like it's swallowed so many others. Sumer's not forgiving out here. The priest's prayer fades, and you catch a whiff of rotting vegetation, a reminder of the marsh's unforgiving mood. You recall the river ordeal, how the thief floated, and the hand-bound guy clutching his token. Sumer's punishments keep getting weirder, each one a new way to say, "Don't mess with us." The exile's sickle glints as she swings, and you admire her grit, even if it's born of desperation. Historians might debate if this was justice or cruelty, but right now it's just her against the swamp, and you're not betting on her. You turn back toward the city's distant glow calling you. The marsh's sounds fade, but the thief's fate sticks with you. A lonely echo of Sumer's relentless order. You feel the night's chill, the stars sharp above, and no more strange punishments wait in the city's shadows. This exile's just one thread in Ur's dusty tapestry, and you're ready to follow the next wherever it leads. You step forward, the path firm underfoot, the marsh's whispers fading behind you. You're back within Ur's walls. The marsh's damp chill now just a shiver in your memory as you navigate the city's bustling streets. The sun's climbing, baking the mud-brick houses, and the air carries the scent of fresh-baked barley bread and sweat. You're drawn to a merchant's courtyard, where a new thief, a wiry man with a nervous tic, stands before a crowd, his stolen goods a sack of dates, piled mockingly at his feet. This time, Sumer's justice isn't about rivers or reeds, it's about restitution, a penalty that sounds simple, but feels like hauling a ziggurat on your back. The crowd's muttering, and you squeeze in, ready for another dose of Ur's dusty drama. Restitution was a core part of Sumerian law, a mainstream fact etched in clay tablets from around 2000 BCE. Legal codes, like Ur-Nammu's, often demanded thieves repay what they stole, sometimes double or triple the value, to both the victim and the temple. Sounds fair, right? Here's the quirky bit. If the thief couldn't pay, they might be forced to work it off, doing grunt labor like grinding grain or cleaning canals. Imagine swiping a sack of dates and ending up as a merchant's personal dishwasher for a year. You smirk. Sumerians invented the ultimate pay-your-dues vibe. Historians still argue whether this was about fairness or trapping the poor in endless debt, but the thief's sweaty brow screams the latter. You watch the merchant, a stout man with a gold armlet, jabbing a finger at the thief. The stolen dates, now a bit squashed, sit as evidence, and the crowd's tossing insults like they're at a roast. The elder overseeing this, a woman with a clay tablet tucked under her arm, declares the penalty. The thief must repay triple the date's value, hundreds of shekels worth, and deliver a month's labor to the merchant's household. You wince. That's a mountain of dates for a guy who looks like he hasn't eaten in days. The thief's muttering protests, but the elder's glare shuts him up. You recall the marsh exile, hacking reeds in solitude. This guy's fate is less lonely, but no less crushing. The merchant steps forward, handing the thief a hoe. He's to start by tending the merchant's date palms, hauling water from the canal under the sun's glare. You catch a whiff of ripe fruit from the pile, and your stomach growls, reminding you why this thief took the risk. Hunger's a brutal motivator, but Sumer's not handing out sympathy. The crowd's dispersing, some chuckling, others shaking their heads. A kid, probably that fig-tosser's cousin, mimics the thief's nervous tick, and you roll your eyes. Sumerian kids are the original trolls, aren't they? Joke's on the thief, though. Those dates he stole are now his life sentence, one palm tree at a time. You lean against a wall, watching the thief shuffle off with the hoe, the merchant barking orders. You think of the honey ant guy, the hand-bound dagger thief, all caught in Sumer's web of weird justice. Restitution sounds practical, but it's a trap for the broke, turning a single crime into months of servitude. Those clay tablets, always lurking, record every shekel owed, binding this guy tighter than reeds. You imagine him toiling under the palms, dreaming of freedom, while Ur's scribes jot down his debt for eternity. Modern debt collectors could learn a thing or two from Sumer, couldn't they? The courtyard clears, leaving just the elder and her tablet, scratching notes in the shade. You catch a faint chant from a nearby temple, a reminder that the gods are watching, probably tallying the thief's penance like cosmic accountants. You wonder if he'll ever pay off those dates, or if he'll be hauling water till his beard's gray. The sun's high now, the air shimmering, and Ur's pulse beats steady, orderly, divine, and just a bit ruthless. You push off the wall. The thief's fate, another thread in Sumer's dusty tapestry. More strange punishments wait, and you're ready to chase them. The city's shadows calling you deeper into their starlit dance. You're wandering Ur's sun-scorched streets again. The merchant's courtyard and its date-hauling thief now a fading echo. The air's thick with dust and the tang of roasting meat, but a strange commotion pulls you toward a small plaza near the city gate. There, a new thief, a lanky man with a sheepish grin, stands atop a wooden platform, surrounded by a jeering crowd. He's not holding stolen goods or a clay token, he's straddling a donkey, facing backward, with a fish hung around his neck. This is Sumer's animal-themed punishment, and it's so bizarre you're torn between laughing and cringing. The crowd's eating it up, and you edge closer, caught in Ur's dusty, absurd theater. Sumerians loved symbolic punishments, a mainstream fact rooted in their flair for public spectacle. By 2000 BCE, legal practices included penalties that used animals to amplify shame, especially for thieves who disrupted the city's order. A thief might be paraded on a donkey or forced to carry a live animal as a mark of their crime. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some texts hint at thieves being made to ride a donkey backward through with the stolen item or something gross like a fish draped on them to mock their greed. You snort. Imagine the smell of that fish after a day in the sun. Historians still argue whether these animal antics were common or reserved for repeat offenders. But this plaza's chaos screams crowd pleaser. You push through the throng, the scent of sweat and donkey hitting you like a warm slap. The thief's gripping the donkey tail, his face redder than a kiln-fired brick as kids pelt him with date pits. The fish, a slimy river carp, swings from a reed cord, drawing flies and giggles. A city official, sporting a bronze amulet, shouts the crime. This guy stole a basket of reeds from a temple weaver. The punishment: ride backward for a day, fish necklace included, while chanting, "I am a foolish thief." You wince, the chant's bad, but that fish is a war crime. You recall the honey ant guy, the marsh exile. This donkey rides a new level of weird. The donkey brays, lurching forward, and the thief nearly tumbles, clutching the tail like it's his last hope. The crowd roars, and you spot that fig-tossing kid from the market, now hurling insults with Olympic precision. Sumerians, man, they turned justice into a circus. You think of those clay tablets, their laws etched like divine post-its, and wonder if some scribe's recording this fishy fiasco right now. Joke's on the thief. Those tablets will outlast his dignity, dug up by future nerds puzzling over Donkey Guy. You almost feel sorry for him. But then the fish slaps his chest, and you stifle a laugh. Rough day, buddy. The official waves a staff, urging the donkey through the plaza. The thief's chant falters, his voice hoarse, but the crowd's not letting him off easy. A woman selling pottery yells, "Steal from the gods again." Fish breath, and you grin. Sumer's got no chill. The punishment's not just about shame, it's a warning, tying the thief's crime to the temple's sacred order. You catch a whiff of incense from a nearby shrine, a reminder that the gods are watching, probably chuckling with the crowd. You wonder if this guy'll ever touch a reed basket again, or if he's swearing off crime for good. You lean against a wall, watching the donkey parade snake toward the city gate. The sun's relentless, baking the plaza, and you swat a fly, likely a cousin of the one circling the fish. You think back to the river ordeal, the backward temple walk, the date-hauling labor. Sumer's punishments keep topping each other in creativity. This animal stunt feels like peak blending humor with a sting that'll linger longer than the fish's smell. The crowd's thinning, bored now that the donkey out of sight, but you linger, feeling pulse, part divine, part absurd, all unforgettable. You step away, the plaza's noise fading into the city's hum. The thief's out there, bouncing backward, fish and all, learning Sumer's lesson the hard way. More strange fates wait in shadows, each one a new twist in this dusty saga. The air's warm, the stars just peeking out, and you're ready to chase the next thread wherever this moonlit city leads. You've left the donkey-riding, fish-necklaced thief behind, his chants still echoing faintly as you slip deeper into labyrinthine streets. The sun's dipping low, painting the mud-brick walls golden, and the air carries the scent of cooling clay and faint temple incense. You're drawn to a quieter neighborhood, where a small crowd gathers outside a modest house, whispering with a mix of pity and scorn. This time, it's not just a thief facing Sumer's odd justice, it's his family, caught in the ripple of his crime. The mood's heavier here, less circus, more slow-burn shame, and you lean in, feeling dusty drama shift to something more personal. Sumerian society was tightly knit, a mainstream fact that made family ties both a strength and a vulnerability. By 2000 BCE, a thief's actions didn't just stain their own name, they could drag their kin into social exile, as communities held families accountable for each other's deeds. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some records suggest a thief's relatives might have to publicly disown them, performing a ritual at the city gate to cut ties, complete with symbolic reed snapping. Imagine your cousin stealing a goat, and now you're breaking sticks in front of everyone to save face. You smirk. Sumerians took family drama to a whole new level. Historians still argue whether this was about collective responsibility or just social pressure, but the tension outside this house feels like a knife. You edge closer, catching sight of the thief, a young man, maybe the one who nabbed those reeds before the donkey stunt. He's not here, he's off enduring his fishy fate. Instead, his mother stands in the doorway, head bowed, clutching a clay amulet. A city elder, a stern woman with a staff, is lecturing her about the family's shame. The crowd's muttering, neighbors mostly, their whispers sharp as reeds. The elder declares the penalty. The family must donate a month's barley to the temple and avoid public markets for a season. You wince. That's not just a hit to their pantry. It's a social death sentence in chatty Ur. The mother's face is tight, her eyes fixed on the ground. You catch a whiff of fresh-baked bread from inside, a cruel reminder of the hunger that probably drove her son's theft. The crowd's not jeering like in the plaza, they're colder, turning away as if the family's tainted. You recall the honey ant guy, the marsh exile, the date-hauling labor. Those were personal, but this feels communal, like Sumer's saying, your son messed up, so you all pay. You spot a kid, not that fig tosser, but close, staring at the mother, wide-eyed, like he's learning how shame works. Joke's on him, he'll probably be dodging his own family drama someday. You lean against a wall, the clay cool against your back. The elder's wrapping up, handing the mother a clay tablet etched with the temple's demands. Those tablets again, binding Ur's people like invisible chains. You imagine the family scraping by, shunned at the water well, their name a whisper in every stall. It's not as flashy as a donkey ride, but it's brutal in its quiet way. You think of modern scandals, post something dumb online, and your whole crew gets side-eyed. Sumerians didn't need Wi-Fi to cancel a family, they had gossip and gods. A priest lingers nearby, muttering a prayer to Inanna, probably to cleanse the neighborhood's taint. You roll your eyes. Sumerians loved their divine overkill. The mother retreats inside, the door shutting with a thud, and the crowd disperses, their whispers trailing like dust. You wonder how she'll face her son when he's back, fish-free but forever marked. The street's emptying now, the air soft with evening's hum. Crickets, a distant dog's bark. Sumer's justice keeps rolling, weaving shame into its social fabric, and you feel its weight, heavier than any reed cord or clay token. You step away, the house's shadow stretching long. The family's fate is another thread in Ur's tapestry, woven with river ordeals, backward walks, and donkey parades. More strange punishments wait, each one a new twist in this moonlit saga. The stars are sharp above, the city's pulse steady, and you're ready to chase the next story, wherever Ur's dusty paths lead. You've left the shunned family's doorstep, their quiet shame lingering like dust in your throat as you weave through Ur's moonlit alleys. The air's cooler now, sharp with the scent of river mud and flickering torch smoke. You hear a rhythmic clank, bronze spears against shields, and spot a patrol of night guards, their eyes scanning the shadows for trouble. You're about to witness Sumer's nocturnal hunt for thieves, a tense game of cat and mouse where the city's order flexes its muscle. The guards' footsteps echo, and you trail them, heart-thumping, drawn deeper into Ur's dusty starlit drama. Night patrols were a staple of Sumerian cities, a mainstream fact tied to their obsession with protecting urban wealth. By 2000 BCE, Ur's leaders employed armed guards to roam markets and alleys after dark, catching thieves who prowled under the cover of night. These patrols weren't just muscle, they were a symbol of the city's control, backed by laws on those eternal clay tablets. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some guards carried clay warrants, tablets listing known thieves' names, like an ancient wanted poster. Imagine a guard squinting at a tablet by torchlight, muttering, "Is that the fish necklace guy?" You smirk. Sumerians were the odd bureaucracy nerds. Historians still argue whether patrols deterred crime or just gave guards an excuse to swagger, but the tension in this alley feels like a coiled snake. You shadow the guards, keeping to the walls, the clay cool under your palms. They're heading toward the market, now shuttered, its stalls dark but still smelling of sesame and dried fish. You spot a figure darting across a side street. A thief, maybe, his cloak flapping like a bat's wings. The guards freeze, then sprint, their spears glinting. You follow, pulse racing, as they corner the figure in a dead-end alley. It's a young man clutching a stolen clay pot, his eyes wide as a cornered gazelle. You recall the donkey-riding thief, the family's shame. This guy's about to join Sumer's parade of peculiar fates. The lead guard, a grizzled man with a scar like a crescent moon, barks questions. The thief stammers, claiming he found the pot, but the guard's not buying it. He pulls out a clay warrant, scanning it under his torch, and you stifle a chuckle. Yep, bureaucracy in action. The pot's from a temple, a bold theft, and the guards already muttering about the god's wrath. The punishment swift. The thief's to be bound and paraded at dawn, carrying the pot on his head while chanting apologies to Enki. You wince another day, another public roast. Joke's on him, though. Steal from a temple, and you're begging for a divine PowerPoint of pain. The guards tie the thief's hands with reeds, their knots tight as Sumer's laws. You catch a whiff of the pot's contents, some kind of oil, probably sacred, and realize this guy's in deeper than the river ordeal thief. The crowd's thin at this hour, just a few night owls and a stray dog sniffing the scene, but word'll spread by morning. You think of the honey ant guy, the marsh exile, the date-hauling labor. Sumer's justice loves its variety, each penalty a new verse in Ur's dusty song. The thief's led away, head low, the pot wobbling as he practices his balance. Good luck, buddy, you'll need it when the market wakes up. You linger in the alley, the guards clanking, fading into the night. Those clay tablets, always lurking, will record this theft, binding the thief to his shame like the reeds on his wrists. You wonder if he's a repeat offender or just a hungry fool. Like so many before him, the stars burn bright, and you hear a distant chant from a temple, a reminder that the gods never sleep. Sumer's patrols are its heartbeat, keeping chaos at bay, but they're also a stage for more weird punishments. You smirk, imagining the pot parade at dawn. Ur's crowds will eat it up. You step back into the street, the city's hum soft. Crickets, a faint breeze, the river's whisper. The thief's fate is another thread in Sumer's tapestry, woven with river dips, donkey rides, and family shame. More strange stories wait, tucked in Ur's shadows, and you're ready to chase them, the night alive with the city's relentless pulse. You've slipped away from the moonlit alley, the night patrol's clanking spears, now a distant rhythm, as you wander Ur's quieter edges. The air's thick with the scent of damp clay and faint wood smoke, and the stars burn sharp above, casting shadows that twist like restless spirits. You're drawn to a small courtyard near the city's granary, where a new thief, a haggard man with sunken eyes, stands before a stern elder and a handful of onlookers. This isn't about parades or fish necklaces, it's about debts unpaid, and Sumer's justice is about to turn a thief into a temporary slave. The mood's grim, the torchlight flickering, and you lean in, caught in Ur's dusty, relentless saga. Debt slavery was a harsh reality in Sumer, a mainstream fact woven into their legal system by 2000 BCE clay tablets, like those of Ur-Nammu's code, show that thieves who couldn't pay fines or restitution, like triple the value of stolen goods, could be forced into servitude, often to the victim or a temple. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some tablets note that these slaves had to wear a shaved patch on their head, a visible mark of their status, like a bad haircut screaming, "I owe big time." You smirk. Imagine explaining that at the tavern. Historians still argue whether this was about punishment or economic survival, but the thief's slumped shoulders tell you it's no picnic. You edge closer, the courtyard's air heavy with the granary's musty barley scent. The thief, caught stealing a merchant's silver, owes a fine he can't possibly pay, dozens of shekels, a fortune for a man in patched rags. The elder, a wiry woman clutching a clay tablet, declares his fate: 6 months of servitude in the merchant's household, hauling water, grinding grain, and, yep, sporting that shaved head patch. You wince. It's not just labor, it's losing your dignity in a city where everyone knows your business. The thief's eyes dart like he's calculating an escape, but the elder's glare pins him like a spear. The merchant, a smug man with a gold-trimmed cloak, steps forward, sizing up his new worker. You catch a whiff of his perfumed oil, a stark contrast to the thief's sweat-soaked fear. The crowd's small, mostly neighbors and a temple scribe jotting notes, but their whispers cut deep. You recall the family shunned for their son's theft, the pot-parading thief caught by the night patrol. This servitude feels like the next grim chapter in Sumer's justice playbook. The thief's led away, hands unbound but spirit broken, to start his sentence at dawn. You think of that fig-tossing kid. Bet he'd love to mock this guy's bald spot. Joke's on the thief, though. 6 months of grinding grain'll make that stolen silver seem like a fever dream. You lean against a granary wall, the clay rough under your palms. Those tablets, always lurking, will record this debt, etching the thief's shame into Ur's eternal ledger. You imagine him toiling under the merchant's roof, his shaved head a beacon of failure, while the city hums on. It's not as flashy as a donkey ride or a river dunk, but it's brutal in its slow grind, turning a man into a tool to repay his crime. You wonder if he'll emerge free or just steal again, trapped in Sumer's cycle of hunger and punishment. Modern debt traps aren't much kinder, are they? At least we don't shave heads, yet. The courtyard empties, the elder and scribe slipping into the night. You catch a faint chant from a distant temple, the god's ever-watchful presence hovering like a low hum. The granary looms, its barley fueling Ur's order, and you feel the city's pulse, ruthless, divine, and unyielding. This thief's servitude is just another thread in Sumer's tapestry, woven with marsh exiles, honey ants, and backward walks. More strange fates wait, hidden in Ur's shadows, and you're ready to chase them. The air's cool, the stars unblinking, and you step forward, the city's whispers urging you deeper into its moonlit tale. You've left the granary's grim courtyard, the thief's shaved head servitude now a heavy shadow in your mind as you drift through Ur's starlit streets. The air's crisp, laced with the scent of river reeds and faint temple smoke, and the city's hum has softened to a whisper. Crickets, a distant lute, the lap of the Euphrates. You're drawn to a small shrine tucked between mud-brick houses, its clay altar glowing under torchlight. Here, a hushed crowd listens to a priest weave tales of mythical justice, where Sumer's gods punish thieves with curses that echo beyond the grave. The mood's eerie, the story's half-warning, half-lullaby, and you slip closer, caught in Ur's dusty, divine drama. Sumerians wove their gods into every facet of life. A mainstream fact clear in their myths by 2000 BCE, texts like the Epic of Gilgamesh show deities like Enlil or Inanna dishing out cosmic punishments for mortal misdeeds, including theft, which was seen as a slight against divine order. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some temple hymns claim thieves could be cursed with eternal restlessness, doomed to wander the underworld, pestered by demons for stealing a merchant's silver. Imagine an afterlife of ghostly paperwork for a bad choice. You smirk. Sumerians had a flair for divine pettiness. Historians still argue whether these myths shaped real punishments or just scared folks straight. But the shrine's chills tell you they hit hard. You settle near the altar, the priest's voice low, his words painting a thief cursed by Shamash, the sun god, to burn under an endless dawn. The crowd's rapt, some clutching amulets, others glancing at the shadows like demons might pop out. You recall the donkey-riding thief, the marsh exile, the debt slave's shaved head. These myths feel like their spooky cousin, less tangible but heavier. The priest points to a clay figurine of a demon, its fangs bared, and says it hunts thieves who dodge mortal justice. You roll your eyes. Sumerians loved their divine scare tactics, didn't they? Still, the stories got you checking the darkness. The priest's tale shifts to a thief who stole from Inanna's temple, only to find his dreams plagued by her vengeful doves, pecking his soul for eternity. You wince. Doves sound cute, but not when they're divine hitmen. The crowd murmurs, and you catch a whiff of myrrh from the altar, its smoke curling like a warning. You think of those clay tablets, their laws grounding Ur's order, but these myths add a wilder layer, promising punishments that outlast life itself. Jokes on the thief, steal a loaf, and you're dodging demon doves forever. You wonder if the fish necklace guy's hearing these stories, rethinking his life choices. You glance at the crowd, a mix of weavers, potters, and a kid, not that fig tosser, but close, wide-eyed at the demon talk. The priest's winding down, urging offerings to appease the gods, and you notice clay tokens shaped like doves on the altar. Cute, until you remember their mythical body count. You think back to the river ordeal, the family's shame, the night patrols. Sumer's justice is a tapestry of the weird and the divine, each thread tightening the city's grip. These myths aren't just stories, they're Ur's heartbeat, keeping thieves in line when reeds and fines aren't enough. The shrine's glow fades as the priest banks the torches, his final words a whisper about Shamash's unblinking gaze. You feel a chill, not just from the night air, and wonder how many thieves lay awake, fearing a curse more than a donkey ride. The crowd disperses, their sandals scuffing softly, and you linger, the altar's smoke still curling. Ur's myths are as real as its clay, binding the city in fear and awe. More strange fates wait, woven into this moonlit saga, and you're ready to chase them, the stars sharp above, urging you deeper into Sumer's shadowed tale. You've slipped away from the shrine's eerie tales, the priest's warnings of cursed thieves trailing you like a faint chill. Ur's streets are hushed now, the moon high, bathing the mud-brick city in silver. The air carries the soft scent of river water and cooling clay, and the distant hum of temple chants blends with the rustle of palm fronds. You're wandering toward the city's edge, where the bustle of markets, trials, and donkey parades fades into a quiet expanse of starlit calm. It's time to reflect on Sumer's strange justice, to let Ur's dusty drama settle as the city sleeps. The night feels gentle, wrapping you in its embrace, and you're ready to ease into the end of this peculiar journey. Sumer's justice was a complex machine, a mainstream fact, rooted in its role as a cradle of civilization. By 2000 BCE, laws etched in clay, like those of Ur-Nammu, blended practical penalties with divine flair, ensuring thieves faced consequences that restored order and pleased the gods. Here's the quirky tidbit. Some tablets suggest minor thieves could be sentenced to weave baskets for temple offerings, a mundane task that doubled as a nod to Inanna's love of crafts. Imagine weaving for a goddess to atone for a stolen fish. Sumerians had a knack for poetic penance. Historians still argue whether these punishments were more about reform or spectacle, but as you stand here, Ur's shadows whisper of both. You pause by a low wall, the city sprawling before you, ziggurats looming, houses huddled, the Euphrates glinting like a silver thread. You think of the thief who braved the river ordeal, his soggy triumph the honey ant guy, itching under the crowd's jeers the marsh exile, lost in reeds, each punishment, from backward temple walks to fish-necklace donkey rides, feels like a verse in Sumer's song, a blend of shame, labor, and divine drama. You smile softly. Those clay tablets, binding every crime, will outlast Ur itself, their wedges telling tales to future dreamers. Joke's on us, though. Our digital footprints are just as eternal, minus the charm of cuneiform. The air's still, the stars unblinking, and you feel Ur's pulse slow, its relentless justice easing into the night. You recall the family's shame, the night patrols, the mythical curses, each a thread in a tapestry that held this city together. Sumer didn't just punish it performed, teaching lessons with a wink and a sting. You imagine the debt slave, grinding grain under a shaved head, wondering if freedom's worth the wait. The city's asleep now, its thieves and guards and priests all dreaming under the same moon. You lean against the wall, the clay warm from the day's heat, and let the quiet sink in. Now, as Ur fades into the soft haze of night, let your thoughts drift like the Euphrates' gentle current. Picture the city's streets empty under starlight, the ziggurats standing silent, their steps kissed by moonlight, the thieves, the crowds, the clay tablets, they're all resting, tucked into Sumer's ancient embrace. Feel your breath slow, matching the rhythm of a distant palm swaying in the breeze, each strange punishment, from river dips to reed-bound hands, was just a flicker in Ur's long story, and now that story's fading, softening, like a whisper carried downstream. Let the weight of the day slip away, your mind as light as a reed boat gliding on still water. The stars are your canopy, the night your blanket, and Ur's dusty drama is done. Rest now, safe in the quiet, and let the world spin gently on. Sweet dreams.